7 for secrets you can never tell. I'm tired of these duties. The world isn't as black and white as you claim. This path is a mistake. I can't keep walking it. Some things are worth dying for, because at this rate, there'll be no future for the Uchiha, or for me. In hindsight, the only thing that stuck with any clarity from the night she learned of Shisui's death, as if burned into her mind, was the words in his suicide letter. Weeks later, Harui sat at Shisui's desk, flipping through the pages of his old notebook. On the surface, his room looked the same. Shisui's jacket hung over a hanger together with an over-the-shoulder harness. Scrolls lined the shelves. His superhero manga mixed up with books about chakra anatomy and a worn copy of the ABCs to Kenjutsu. His old tanto was on the shelf, not far from the shuriken collection displayed on the wall. Except the two missing. His favorites had been with him. His room was unchanged, stuck between being a shrine to Shisui's life and a cruel taunt. Here the room stood ready, clean, tidy, and warm, awaiting a ghost that couldn't use it anymore. Haruhi had gone long stretches of time without seeing her brother before, but the idea that she'd never see him again was too painful. To never hear us laugh again, or watch him empty out 3 plates of Dad's dinners, never greet her brother when he returned home. Being reminded of the future that awaited Haruhi, one without him, was unbearable. It made her nauseous, physically unwell to such an extent she struggled getting out of bed. But her parents had enough with their grief to worry about Haruhi too. She fiercely regretted the hair mishap, though in ways she hadn't predicted. A couple days after they learned of Shisui, Haruhi had been in the kitchen, looking out the window when she'd suddenly been grabbed and whirled around. Startled, Haruhi could only comply, confused what had come over her mum. Since Shisui, Mum walked around the house a ghost of her usual self, but in that instance, something had overcome her, and she'd stared at Haruhi with such fervent longing. It was short-lived. Haruhi watched the recognition dawn on her mum's face. The hope shattered anew when the loss of her son washed over her once more. Because her haircut made Haruhi look like a boy, or more accurately, like Shisui. So though Haruhi hadn't received any scolding for it, this was worse. Her parents could hardly look at her. She existed in the vacuum of his absence. The sun rose and fell in the sky. Days turned into weeks. Haruhi went to the academy, did her homework and kept up with her training. Her routine remained the same, but the days slipped away in a fog. The future that had been so fixed had become hazy and unclear, strangely fragile. Her goal had always been to be as great a ninja as her brother, but what did that mean now? What was the point? What was she doing? Who am I without you? Haruhi's eyes leapt over Shisui's writing as if it held the answer. She'd always been Shisui's sister, the younger sibling of the family. It was a fundamental element of her identity. Now though, she had no elder sibling. Did that mean she was the eldest? She flipped to the next page of her brother's notebook, looking over a town map he'd sketched years ago. The notes in the margin mentioning a land of frost, so she assumed that's where the map had been drawn up. Personally, Haruhi had never gotten into the journal habit. She didn't want to waste pocket space carrying around a brush, ink and notebook. Where would she store her kunai? But Shisui and Dad always did. And while Haruhi had been out playing, her brother had sat in this very chair, holding this brush, while writing his suicide letter. Well, probably not here. Shisui's letter had been on a page torn from a notebook he carried in his weapon pouch, so it could have been written anywhere. Or someone with access and knew her brother's habits had done it. For a boy who'd been regular enough logging his experiences that his collected journals filled several volumes, Shisui's last letter was pitifully short. Wasn't that irony at its cruelest? Here she sat, surrounded by years of Shisui's observations, but her brother's most crucial thoughts, the key to some desperately needed insight into why he did it, was barely long enough to be called a note. What had Shisui meant? What duties had tired him out? What had he meant about the clan? It wasn't enough. I don't understand, brother. The letter was confiscated and placed in some file down at the police station, while the notebook the paper was ripped from remained wherever Shisui's body had gone, lost to the Naka River. Everything else remained here though, not that they gave her any answers. His older notebooks were mostly work-related, writings about countries, ninjas, and different jutsu. There were studies on ways to counter techniques, diagrams, calculations, and illustrations too, especially maps. The lines thin and pinpoint straight, as if he'd used a ruler to draw it up. But Haruhi knew his hand was just that steady. The Sharingan probably helped too. The notebooks were collected over Shisui's years as a ninja, going back to his genin days. But though they were about work, reading them made Haruhi feel like she could almost, but not quite, hear his voice. She flipped to another page, then another and another. Her eyes skimmed another map of a lake in a forest, drawn smaller than the last one, but supplanted with a rough sketch. It depicted an old, haggard owl standing on a branch, seconds away from falling asleep, even though a big dog, or maybe a wolf, stood at the base of the tree, looking frustrated towards the unbothered bird that it was unable to get. It was just a sketch Shisui might have drawn during mission downtime, completely irrelevant to everything else, since her brother had also scribbled next to it, almost like an afterthought. Show little sister. Heart in her throat, Haruhi studied the owl. He'd drawn this thinking to show her? Here was another little sign he hadn't forgotten his sister while out on his many missions. He'd known she'd like it. A smile forcing itself on her lips, even as another wave of grief washed through her. What happened to you? During the evenings, Haruhi spent the hours staring emptily at the ceiling, preoccupied analyzing their last conversation. It had been the morning she slept in, and her brother ran her to the academy. She wished so badly she had the Sharingan. If she did, Haruhi could have recalled their conversation with perfect clarity. But instead it was left to her normal brain to hold on to, where it was difficult to trust what truly happened and what was her imagination filling in blanks. The one thing she knew for sure: she'd been so mean. Grumpy and absorbed in her own insignificant matters. Shisui hadn't deserved her attitude, and Haruhi had failed to notice anything off. Had he been silent, tired, hurt? Was there something she could have done? What Haruhi wouldn't give to go back to that day and skip class. She'd spent the whole day with him. She'd ask him about his day instead of complaining he wasn't in hers. Then maybe it would have turned out different. Shisui, how could you leave me? Weren't we enough? Her ears perked up, picking up a heated exchange between her parents. Has to answer for himself, her dad said, his voice harsh while they walked down the hallway. I know, but it's not that simple. He's my nephew, Kaji. And Shisui's your son, Inori. Kaji! Itachi didn't show up for the memorial, Dad pointed out. He hasn't been by to check on you or Haruhi. He didn't show for the meeting. I didn't show for the meeting either. That's different. Our son is dead. I can't can't make myself believe it." There was a long pause of silence, and then, "They were best friends, as close as brothers. My nephew wouldn't. He just wouldn't." "Our son didn't commit suicide, Inori. You know it, I know it, and Itachi knows it. The boy knows something but won't tell. Why, Inori? You're the detective, so ask yourself that. If Itachi's not at fault, why won't he tell us what happened to our son? What is he hiding? What side is he on?" Their voices faded with the closing of their bedroom door. She was sure they were still discussing it, but her dad had put up silencing seals on that room, and it was pointless to try and eavesdrop. Her parents didn't believe Shisui committed suicide. There were blood tracks and signs of his death by a cliffside overseeing the Naka River, but no actual body. It had made all this harder to accept. In the first weeks or so, Haruhi had gingerly held on to a secret hope, even in the face of everyone's grief, accusations and anger. Because what if Shisui was just lost in the woods or something? What if her brother was alive and all of this was just a huge misunderstanding? Sure, there was some blood, but they were ninja. They bled all the time. But it had been weeks, and Shisui still wasn't back. He wouldn't stay away like this when they needed him this badly. The only explanation he wasn't back was because he couldn't. Yet Shisui was just gone. The exacts of how it happened a mystery, especially when a suicide note could be faked. It'd be especially easy for an Uchiha with a Sharingan to mimic another's handwriting. It wasn't just her parents who doubted the suicide theory either. Several in the clan suspected Shisui was killed and his death covered up. Haruhi thought it made more sense than suicide too. Except for how the main suspect was Itachi. Itachi! Haruhi had gone over this for weeks. At first, she'd been inclined to agree. Not really because she believed it, but because the alternative was worse. If Shisui was killed, there'd be someone to blame. And Haruhi needed that. Whichever way Itachi was involved, one thing was for sure. He was there when it happened. And Haruhi was so mad. There were instances she felt ready to burst, like she'd bleed to death with the pain of it. This grief clawing at her mind had to go somewhere. The pressure needed relief. Because what was the alternative? If it wasn't Itachi who did it, or anyone else to accuse, then the only one left to blame was Shisui. Which wasn't an option. Haruhi couldn't aim this rage at her brother. There simply needed to be someone else. And that thought stuck until recently, when some of the foggy rage cleared, giving way for introspection. Because this was Itachi they were pointing at. Sure, Dad made valid points that confused Haruhi too, but she knew him. Itachi'd been there from her earliest memories. Her brilliant, kind, and steadfast cousin, Sasuke's elder brother. He was an excellent ninja and a true genius. Haruhi had never liked to admit it, but despite being younger than Shisui, Itachi was probably the stronger ninja. As Uncle Fugaku's eldest son, Itachi was the heir to the Uchiha clan and would one day lead them, but he still preferred to remain to the side looking in, instead of stand amidst them and guide by example. Maybe because Itachi's example wasn't possible for most, since not everyone could be a genius. Maybe because the sidelines meant Itachi got a better overview, or maybe it was because Itachi generally struggled to fit in. Her cousin had a tendency to loneliness and an introspective nature, but when pushed to interact, he had a blunt way of stating things. A combination which unfortunately made Itachi sound pretty arrogant, as if he was staying at arm's length and only bothered to speak up to point out flaws or correct others. It kept most at bay, though not all. Itachi picked a few to trust, and amongst those he'd been closest to was Shisui. Any arrogance or awkwardness or genius melting away in the wake of their camaraderie. Haruhi had envied how Shisui always hung out with Itachi, yet barely seemed to have an hour to spare for her. Her brother was a strong, inquisitive, brave, social, upbeat person who liked having fun even in the face of their parents' scolding. Maybe especially then. While Itachi, though always polite, rule-abiding and dutiful, could honestly be rather dull. They'd been different, but maybe that's what made them click. No matter how, Harui knew it had been real. Itachi loved Shisui almost as much as Harui did, and these accusations weren't right. Itachi would never kill his best friend, his family. Why the hell would Itachi do something so horrible? It was as unimaginable as Shisui killing himself. Her musings derailed when she heard a sound that didn't belong. It wasn't a voice from the hallway this time, but a light scratching coming from outside. Harui stood up, opened the window and peered into the backyard. A flower-scented breeze brushing over her face, and at first nothing seemed different. She didn't understand what had caused the noise until she turned her head, looking down the house. "What are you doing?" Her cousin was outside Harui's bedroom window, his legs dangling out amidst an attempt to clamber inside. At her question, his body stopped wiggling. This is your bedroom, isn't it?" Taiko asked, sliding back outside, trampling her mom's petunia flowers. He jumped back, pretending it hadn't happened. Taiko could be such a klutz. "Did I get the wrong room?" he wondered, looking quizzically between the window he'd been climbing through and back to the one Harui was speaking out from. "That's my room you're breaking into, but I'm not in there right now." "I see." Taiko scratched the back of his neck, his smile sheepish. "Wanna come play, Harui-chan?" She considered it. "I haven't done my homework yet." "Neither have I," Taiko laughed. "We can do it later." "Alright." Harui nodded. "I'll come, but can we buy some senbei first?" "Sure." "Great! Go around and I'll meet you up front." It was a detour to stop by the Uchiha senbei shop, but her dad hadn't been up for much cooking of late, and the girl had to eat. While they were there, Harui and Taiko came across some of their other cousins too, both in front and behind the counter. "Hi, Sasuke," Harui said quietly, getting a line behind him while Sasuke accepted his senbei from Toyaki. With his purchase in hand, Sasuke turned around. "Hi, Harui." It had been weeks since Harui last trained with Sasuke now, nor had she been over for dinners at Aunt Mikoto's. She'd hardly seen either since that night. It was all this tension about Itachi. Even now, there was an awkwardness between them. Taiko cleared his throat before saving them from a very uncomfortable silence. "You wanna come play, Sasuke-kun?" Sasuke shifted, considered it for a moment. "No, I'm training this afternoon." "But we're going to the park, come on." The biggest grandchild, Ume, had been eavesdropping and lit up like a fire-style jutsu. "You're gonna go to the park?" Ume skipped around the stand and tugged on Harui's shirt. "Can we come too?" Another cousin, Eita, was with her. "Me too," Eita begged. "Oh, yeah," Harui said, glancing at Taiko, who agreed to, which earned them a free senbei from Ume's grandma, though they would have done it without the bribes too. Besides, the extra food reminded Harui of Shisui and his endless appetite, and the many times she'd come here with her brother, usually with Itachi and Sasuke in tow. "Yay!" Ume looked excited as she looked between her older cousins. "Hey, Harui-ne-chan." "Yes?" "Why do you look like a boy?" Taiko burst out laughing and Sasuke snickered. Harui dragged a hand through her short hair, fighting against a blooming blush. Ume had always been the blunt sort. "I just cut my hair. It's not like I cut my face." "But why?" the little girl pressed, just before her obsidian eyes got an understanding glint to them. "Is it because Shishi's gone and you want to look like him?" It was a genuine question, but hearing others talk of Shisui like that, as if he was in the past, made Haruhi ill at ease. Like she wanted to take the closest exit and get as far away from anyone as she could. But she also understood that Umi wasn't trying to be mean. Yes, Haruhi decided to say. Why not own it? It had been an accident, but she was stuck with it for the foreseeable future. So why the hell not let Umi think it was because her brother died and she wanted to look like him? You think it worked? Umi and Eita nodded fervently. Yeah! You look just like Shishi now. Grandma had a scare yesterday when you walked to the academy, thinking you were his ghost. Said Grandma smiled apologetically to Haruhi, though there was no need. She wasn't the only one making that mistake these days. Once more, Haruhi really regretted allowing Tenten and Shio to go at her hair with scissors. They stepped out of line so cousin Izumi could make her purchase too, while Sasuke was about to leave when Haruhi called out. Hey, Sasuke, you should come too. Sasuke turned back, fidgeting with a wrapping on his senpai. You want me to? Of course I do. Whatever the situation with Itachi was, Sasuke wasn't part of it. He'd cared a lot about Shisui too, more to his death, and she really did miss hanging out with him. Sasuke was her favorite cousin and the very best sparring partner. Haruhi smiled. It'd be more fun if you came too. Another time, Haruhi. He turned to offer down again, but he was smiling, looking more at ease when he gestured towards the kiddos. You've got Umi and Eita along, so if I know any of you at all, I bet you'll be playing instead of training at the park. We can train, Umi declared. Me too! Eita backed her up. They were just kiddos. Eita was 3 years old and Umi was 5. Neither were in the academy yet, but they were always so excited to train with her, eager to learn anything and everything they could from their older cousins. Sure you will, Sasuke smirked, sounding very skeptic. He picked the kunai from his pouch, twirling it around his index finger. I'm training with ranged targets anyway. They're better for kunai practice in the poles at the play park. And that's too dangerous for little kiddos like you. You don't even have real steel. Indignant, Umi's face flushed. She stuck her hand deep into the pocket of her red overalls, bringing out her wooden kunai and flailing it wildly in the air. I can do a lot of damage with this, Sasuke-Nisan. Me too, Eita said, fumbling to get his wooden kunai out as well. Sasuke looked lost between them, unsure how to handle his two little Uchiha challengers. So Haruhi stepped up, a distraction at the ready. Hey, why don't you guys show me how good you are with those kunai? She suggested. At the play park. Haruhi bent down, picking up a pedal from the road and wagging her eyebrows. A wordless signal as did every Uchiha focus in on the innocent little rock. I'll race you! She threw the little rock high into the air, making everyone rush to get into position. Haruhi grinned at how Umi immediately took it way too seriously, and Eita taking his cue from her. Taiko fell into a race stance too, while their eyes followed the stone as it arced through the air and fell, the start signal falling when the pedal hit the ground with a click. The other three set off, dust and gravel kicked up from the force. Last one there is a slug! Haruhi shouted, giving them a head start while she turned quickly back to Sasuke. We should train tomorrow. Properly. He chuckled. Alright, tomorrow then. We'll go directly from the academy. Haruhi gave him 2 thumbs up and took off. She still had a race to win. The others had reached the bend in the road by the time Haruhi caught up. Passing Eita, then as he neared Haruhi's house, she passed Umi too, who sputtered indignantly. One day I'm gonna show ya, Haruhi-ne-chan! Just wait and see! Haruhi laughed, her feet drumming over the ground, forcing herself to full speed and basking in it. The breeze through her hair, the quickening beat of her heart, and the strain coursing through her muscles came together and threw off the heavy fog, making her feel lighter, making her even faster. She had a natural talent for running, of staying just a step ahead of the curve, even before she'd started the academy. Haruhi had always been fast.
Afternoon, Aunt Suzuki!
Haruhi waved as they flew by Izumi's mum, who was out watering the bushes along her front lawn. The woman smiled amused, waving with her pink watering can just as Haruhi took off onto the forest path, at last overtaking Taiko too. They egged each other on into the forest, giggling while jumping over rocks and puddles, flipping low-hanging branches into each other, trying to trip the other up. The play park came into view, and Haruhi kicked up the gear, putting in everything she had, pushing to her fastest for the final stretch. Her hand smacked into the fence with a bang, rattling the timber so hard it drove the half-dozen crows hanging out on the fence into the air.
Yes!
She whooped, declaring her victory as the fastest when Taiko came in second, the kiddo stumbling in half a minute later. Panting and clutching her side, Umi sprawled over a fallen trunk by the entrance, her dramatic swooning scaring up a lost crow hiding behind it. The bird cawed at her, sounding almost offended.
It was just some running, Umi-chan,
Taiko chuckled.
I got cramps,
she huffed, rolling onto the ground and laying flat on the grass.
That's why I fell behind. My stomach hurts.
Eita fidgeted.
Me too?
He said, as if unsure that was true, but unwilling to say something that went against Umi. The kid adored her. Is that so? Then does that mean you'll go back to the shop so your grandma can look at it? Haruhi asked innocently. That's too bad. I guess that means we can't play dinosaurs chasing ninjas after all.
What? No!
Umi scrambled to her feet, suddenly healthy as a horse.
I want to play dinosaurs eating ninjas!
It's not eating, Taiko corrected. The dinosaur chases.
What do you think happens after the dinosaurs catches the ninja?
Umi asked him pointedly.
The ninja gets eaten, Taiko-Nisan.
Only if they get caught, Haruhi sing-songed. All the ninjas must get under cover. At 20, the dino comes and it's over. She covered her eyes with her hands and heard them set off before she'd even started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was a lot of fun, even if there were instances Haruhi felt strange. It could hit at the slightest provocations, whether it be a gnawing guilt in her chest, feeling as if it was a betrayal to have fun without Shisui, wrong to smile in a world without him. But the grief came and went, and it wasn't good for anyone. Being upset just made her mum and dad even worse. She held her composure around her parents, but here, was she even pretending? Being with her cousins and doing normal things like playing dinosaurs chasing ninjas kept things at bay. If only for a while, it dragged Haruhi out of the hurt, demanding play and laughter and participation. Things didn't seem as dire with them, not as black, not compared to the way it was at home. Shisui couldn't play or train with Haruhi anymore, but she could do that with her cousins. Besides, Haruhi was going to be a ninja, and this was part of it, wasn't it? Some died young. She couldn't forget, but there'd be a tomorrow for her. A day she had to live even if her brother chose not to. The first Haruhi found was Eita, hiding poorly under the slide. He gave a shriek and started running, but he had no chance against Haruhi's speed.
Gotcha, Eita-kun!
Pouting like the 3-year-old he was, Eita went to wait, though it wasn't long until Haruhi located Taiko and Umi in the bushes by the poles. It took Haruhi a moment to chase down Taiko. He got a head start fleeing while Haruhi was catching Umi, but she caught him in the end. Since Eita was found first, he took the next turn as dinosaur, and the game continued on that way. For each turn, the hiding spots ended up a little bit further out, a little harder since there were more grounds to scout, until almost an hour of play had gone by. The sun was setting over the forest. The last golden hour of the day casting long shadows through the leafy canopies. And it was Umi's turn to be dinosaur.
All the ninjas must get under cover! At 20, the dino comes and it's over!
Umi chimed and put her hands over her eyes.
1, 2, 3.
Tycho ran around the rusty slide and into the forest, while Eta climbed up the hanging netting into the branches above, while Haruhi ran to the fallen tree trunk by the path. There was a little cavity in the trunk, not large enough in itself, but had fallen right next to a thick bush, and her plan was to try cover in the nook between them. Press as far as she could into the cavity and cover whatever remained visible with the leaves. Getting into it worked better than expected, so she wiggled in while keeping an ear out for the time.
11, 12, 13.
Umi counted while Haruhi concluded her hiding spot would do. If she was found, she had nowhere to run. But that was only if she was found.
16, 17.
Umi's voice trailed off, so Haruhi made sure to lay extra still. She made out some rustling in the grass, but otherwise all Haruhi heard was her own breathing. The rule was to count to 20, but Umi had stopped at 17. Had she gotten ahead of herself again and started looking early? Haruhi waited for the dinosaur to come, but the silence stretched. Umi didn't keep counting, and Haruhi couldn't make out any shuffling or footsteps either. She leant out, just far enough to peek, but she couldn't see anything. Had Umi left? She considered staying put. Maybe Umi went the other direction into the forest, and Haruhi just didn't catch it. But something told her to check. Haruhi crawled out, dusting moss and cobwebs off her knees and half expecting Umi to shout, point and come running towards her. Yet, all was still. Haruhi strolled back to the park's entrance, halting with a sharp intake of breath. What the hell? Instead of coming to find them, Umi had just laid down? No, it was worse! She decided to do a prank! If she didn't want to play anymore, Umi just had to say so. She didn't need to do this! Because Umi lay on the ground, eyes unfocused, jaws slack, and blood soaking the collar of her shirt. What sick joke was this? Pissed, Haruhi raised her hands into the seal for a genjutsu cancellation. Release! She flared her chakra, pouring it out, but it had no effect. Little Umi remained the exact same, looking fucking dead. Umi? Her voice faltered, but a tinge of fear only served to make her even more angry. This isn't funny! Stop it! How could they? Who thought this prank was okay? After Shisui or ever? She raged, anger overwhelming her before it collided hard with a secondary instinct. Another line of thought. Did Shisui really kill himself? Or was his murderer still out there? Was he done? Ime! Haruhi rushed to her side, knees scraping into the grass and hands fluttering to her neck, searching frantically for a pulse. Shit! This wasn't a genjutsu. It wasn't a prank at all. Taiko, help me! Ime's hurt! She's really hurt! Get help! She screamed, so shrilly her voice rasped. Taiko! Eta! Eta's name morphed into a blood-curdling scream when Haruhi tried to lift Ume, some panicked plan to run for help rolling through her mind. But as she lifted the girl, Ume's head remained behind in the grass. Cut off. The body dropped to the ground and Haruhi scrambled to her feet, eyes searching frantically through the trees, fumbling for the weapon holster on her thigh until her fingers wrapped around Shisui's birthday gift from years ago. She drew the kunai. They weren't alone. Someone else was here and they killed Ume. Her gaze trailed slowly up the net, the one Eta had climbed up to hide in the branches, and there he remained. No! Eta was hanging there, and would have fallen if it wasn't for the way his shirt was stuck around a branch. Despite how uncomfortable that had to be, Eita wasn't struggling to get back up onto the branch, wasn't moving at all. The bark was coated dark where he hung, dripping down his legs and onto the net, dyeing the textile scarlet.
No!
A scream came from the forest.
Tycho!
She hissed, desperate for an answer but terrified of what was listening. Her gaze locked on a branch swaying amongst the group of still ones.
Where are you?
The swaying branch was half hidden behind the slide, and carefully, Haruhi walked forwards, dreading each crumble of leaves, until this dreadful fear was validated. From behind the slide, Tycho suddenly fell into view, hitting the grass with his arms sprawled awkwardly. And there, behind him, Itachi was in full gear, dressed in black with a pale vest strapped over his chest, gripping a long, blood-soaked katana. Haruhi whimpered. Her heart and mind clashed into a chaotic mess, their conflicting commands screaming at her. One part of her insisted this was good, that Itachi would protect him now. But the other part, a much more urgent one, shut that down hard. It went against everything she knew about him, all their history and what she understood of the world. Yet her instincts overrode her head. Haruhi could feel it in her bones, the surety coursing through her lifeblood with urgent warning. That's not family. That's her enemy. And Itachi was the last person Haruhi could seek safety from anymore. If she remained with him, she'd go the same way as Umi and Eita. Like Tycho. Like Shisui. It was quick too. Only seconds passed after Haruhi spotted Eita's body to when Itachi walked out from behind the trees, taking a longer step over Tycho. The light dusting of red dots across his cheek could almost be mistaken for freckles. His gait was noiseless, his Sharingan's sharp like blades, a contrast to his expressionless face. Didn't he care? Haruhi walked backwards. Itachi's betrayal unsteadied Haruhi with the intensity of an earthquake dissolving the foundations under her feet. But she couldn't afford to look away, not for a second. Why? She whispered, though honestly it came out sounding more a plea. In a sudden snap, it was as if the world pulsed. The flaring sun grew brighter, almost blinding, except everything else got vivid too. Don't be afraid, Haruhi, Itachi said, almost softly. It'll be over soon. His Sharingan faded to black nearly at the same moment Haruhi activated hers. Her Sharingan. It took her a moment to understand she'd finally done it. What she'd wanted for so long. But this isn't what she wanted. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Stay away from me! Haruhi slashed the kunai through the air. An empty, pathetic threat about as threatening as Umi with her little wooden kunai. But it was all she had, and she didn't want him any closer. It did nothing to deter him. So what could? What could she do? If nothing else, the steel made Haruhi feel less alone. This frilly thing standing between them, barely a sewing needle to the legs of Itachi, was also all she had left of Shisui. But her brother was dead. He wouldn't come to save her. Was there anything that could? Haruhi hadn't even graduated, while Itachi was a prodigy, even amongst the elites. There wasn't much she could do, but even then, did Itachi expect her to stand here waiting like a pig for slaughter? To make it easy for him? Even if she couldn't win, she'd rather be defeated fighting to the last. She loosened her hold on the kunai, changing the grip for better hand dexterity. Itachi's Sharingan was deactivated, knowing perfectly well he didn't need such against her. he wouldn't recall killing Haruhi with perfect clarity the way he would Taiko. He'd probably used him against Shisui too. Tiger. He loved you, Haruhi pleaded. She needed him to know that, because it made all this the more sick. But maybe he already did know though. He'll hate you. Yes, but I will bear it. Itachi's voice kept steady, only hitching the slightest on the last words. Or maybe she was kidding herself into thinking there could be reluctance. One glance around him told her there wasn't. Boar. Ox. Why had she mentioned Shisui? As if Itachi would spare her when he hadn't even spared his best friend? Dog. Itachi took a deep breath, and next, any hint of expressions smoothed back into intense focus. Itachi wasn't going to explain himself. He just lifted his katana. The day's last golden ray from the setting sun bounced off the metal and into Haruhi's blood-red eyes. Snake. The blade fell the same instant Itachi's eyes dropped to her hands, widening just the tiniest. But he was already committed to the strike when he noticed what she was doing. Haruhi hadn't just held the kunai. When he talked while she stalled, Haruhi had been forming hand seals around the weapon handle too. Replacement no jutsu! The world sped by even as Haruhi sobbed as she landed. Itachi cut into Umi's body with a fleshy thud, slicing clean through the headless body for a second time. Forgive me, Ume! I didn't have a choice. She needed a counterbalance to switch with, and Umi's corpse was the only thing close enough to Haruhi's size. Tears pressed against her eyes, but terror kept them back. She needed visibility, though even amidst her panic, nothing had ever looked as clear. Her Sharingan sharpened every contour, and every movement had gone sharply predictable. Haruhi could see, even amidst the rushing speed of the second replacement jutsu. Her Sharingan had predicted where she'd land before her feet actually stopped. The trunk she swapped with landed by Umi's head in a puff of smoke and a thud, rolling away. Haruhi ran, hands forming seals to replace with another branch, this one too small and causing a bigger chakra drain, so her next switch was with a sizable rock, before she was out of options and Haruhi ran ahead on foot. Even if Itachi hadn't expected the replacement jutsu, he'd catch up. Her only hope was to get back to the Uchiha district before he did. Racing ahead of this cousin wasn't a game. It wasn't some make-believe dinosaur. Itachi was the real deal. A true monster coming to kill her. She spotted the pink object and ended up switching with a watering can sloshing with water, snapping Haruhi right into Aunt Izuku's flower bed. The woman herself lay still in the honeysuckle bushes, stabbed to death. Her too? He'd already been here? What had she done to deserve this? What had any of them? A chill ran over this quietly silent district, and the fear of what it could mean threatened to cripple her. Not now. Not yet. Haruhi had to keep going for help. She did 2 more replacements, one with a trash can and the final with her mother's flower pot on the front lawn. The ceramic cracked against the ground behind her as Haruhi leapt up onto the porch. Mom! Dad! She stormed through the front door left ajar, nearly crashing into the wall from the speed, and staggered when kicking up soot and dust. From the entrance of her house, the house split into 2 sections. The private hallway were the bedrooms one way, and the other leading towards more public rooms, like the kitchen and living room. But now, the private part was just ruined. Everything from the front door to what might be Haruhi's bedroom was splintered to pieces or burned. What the... Dad! Haruhi rushed down the other way instead. Mom! She stepped into something wet and looked down. Something dark was staining the tatami mats. Blood. So much of it. No. Pain clutched her heart, but Haruhi followed the blood across the floor, through the doorway to the kitchen. Her mum laid still on the floor, mouth ajar, sickly pale, a gaping wound in her chest, and her face, her eyes were hollowed. The lids collapsed into her skull. Where were her beautiful eyes? It was too much. The tears burst forth, streaming over her cheeks. Haruhi fell. Not physically, maybe, but the world seemed to rip at the seams. Her ears rushing, a ringing whine that sounded akin to some animal, like a wounded wolf howling. There was a click, and her mind disconnected. It was too much. Her breath in gasps, but her head was numbed, thoughts muted. And next, her mum stood up, brushing off her shirt. "I'm sorry, how clumsy of me. I slipped." It made no sense. Yet Haruhi stared hungrily at her unmarked face, drinking her in while she could. If this was what going mad was like, it was so much better than reality. Or maybe Itachi caught up. Maybe it was fast. Quicker and easier than falling asleep. "Haruhi." Her dad's voice drifted from the living room. "Welcome home." "Did I worry you, sweetie?" Mum smiled kindly, noticing Haruhi's stricken expression. "It's alright, don't be afraid." "Help me," she whispered, but Haruhi couldn't stay in the illusion. She squeezed her eyes shut, the tears flowing, chakra disrupting her system. She wasn't sure these illusions stemmed from genjutsu or if maybe her mind had truly snapped. And it didn't matter which anyway, because when she opened her eyes next, her mum was back to being lifeless on the floor and the house silent as a graveyard. Somehow, maybe in a trance more than consciously, Haruhi found herself moving on, her feet pattering into the living room where she knew she'd find Dad. He laid bent in an indent in the cracked wall, head tilted down. Even without seeing his face, she knew from his stillness, from the slash over his chest, from the amount of blood painted up the wall, across the photograph hanging crooked, that there was nothing. Gone. Everyone. How could this happen? They all. Dad, Mum, Aunt Hazuki, her cousins, Shisui. They're all dead! Yet, she wasn't alone. Haruhi whirled around, facing down the dark corner of the living room. At first, she thought it another illusion, another ghost cooked up by her scrambling grief, because it should have been Itachi there. By now, he should have caught up. He might have been the one to put her under an illusion before. But no, it wasn't. This was... Haruhi actually had no idea who it was. The stranger was tall and wore an orange mask. He fiddled with something on his belt, putting away a jar filled with liquid. The color and the unruly way his hair spiked was similar to several other Uchihas, and his tall frame seemed familiar too. Even without seeing his face, Haruhi felt she should know him from somewhere. And there, in the one hole in the mask, there was a reddish glint. The Sharingan? What the hell? It seemed so illogical. She was thankful it was anyone but Itachi. But why was he here? Standing randomly in their living room, as if he'd accidentally walked into the wrong house. Had he come to help? He was an adult. He was alive. Anyone alive had to run for their life. Itachi's gone crazy, Haruhi stammered. Run, he'll kill us. You can't handle a little boy, he called evenly, addressing someone behind her. Do I have to do everything myself? She shuddered, the tremble traveling down her neck. The walls were closing in as Haruhi peered over her shoulder, finding Itachi standing in the doorway, the masked stranger ahead.
Surrounded.
No, wait. You must be his daughter, coming here for help. I'm afraid that's not possible, little girl. The stranger mused, flicking his wrist so the sharp edge of his katana pointed towards her. Leave, Itachi commanded. I'll handle her. Get it done then, the stranger said and turned towards the wall. Then, like a ghost, walked into it, melting through as if it turned to water. Haruhi couldn't melt through solid objects, but maybe she could break them. Haruhi's hands clasped into the tiger seal for another replacement jutsu, aiming for the window. She leapt into the jutsu, her chakra flinging her towards the countering chair on the patio. It was all Haruhi could do, even if she'd known the same trick didn't work on Itachi twice. Haruhi screamed in pain when violently grabbed out of the jutsu mid-transport. The chakra-enhanced speed redirected downwards as Haruhi got smashed into the floor. The timber cracked. Her head bounced so hard it left stars bursting behind her eyelids. But through the aches, confusion, and what was probably a broken shoulder, nothing was worse than the fact Itachi had her trapped. In a burst of energy, her will to fight came back tenfold, and Haruhi went ballistic.
No, Itachi! No! How could you?
Fruitlessly, Haruhi struggled against his grip, hitting her one free hand against the hard plate of his vest, trying to knee him, kick him. There was no way to flee, only to fight or die.
Please let me go! It's me! Haruhi! Your family! Shisui wouldn't want this!
Haruhi. Itachi said her name heavily. I didn't want you to see.
And I don't want to die!
Haruhi screamed, reduced to an undignified blubbering mess at his mercy.
Stop! Please stop!
Wrecking sobs choked her throat. Snot and spit mingled with her streaming tears while she hit anything within reach, attempting to bite him, her fingers clambering, nails scraped bloody, but it made no difference. Haruhi was smaller, younger, weaker, stripped of defenses against Itachi's whims.
You killed them all! What did we ever do? This isn't like you! You can stop! Stop this! Stop it! Stop! Stop!
You stop! Itachi shouted her words back in her face. You're only making it harder for yourself! His expression strained, the lines of his tear ducts more pronounced than ever. For all Itachi looked sorry, he wasn't letting her go. Itachi swallowed heavily. It's too late, Haruhi. Look around you, he said with forced softness, as if he thought he was being kind.
That sick, twisted traitor!
This is necessary. There isn't any future for us, but you'll be with Shisui soon.
No!
Itachi flicked away, leaving her suddenly free. But before Haruhi could even think to take advantage of it, his katana slashed. There was a swishing blur, swinging so fast her Sharingan only caught a glimmer flaring diagonally through the air. A strange crushing reverberated through her bones. The lights flickered and she lost focus. Did her Sharingan deactivate? Yet there was a delay where Haruhi didn't feel a thing. She touched her forehead, unnerved by the blood oozing over her fingers.
Itachi?
A jolt flashed through her head, electrifying her nerves with the intensity of a lightning bolt, going from feeling nothing to everything, and all of it very wrong.
Itachi, what have you done? You killed me. Killed everyone.
The world was coated red, and her cheek pressed against a cold, hard surface. The room's perspective skewed sideways. Had she fallen? But she could still make out the hazy edges of a figure hovering over her.
Curse your eyes, traitor.
Her murderer said something, but it was indistinguishable against the spluttering battle of her heart struggling to keep beating. A heaviness seeped through her limbs, making every single heartbeat harder and harder, taking an immense amount of effort. Like every push of blood through the organ was as tiring as running a marathon. Again and again and again, her body couldn't withstand this. Haruhi faded, but the oncoming darkness didn't grant relief, neither from injury nor betrayal. It hurt so bad.
All my life, you weren't just Shisui's brother. You were mine too. I trusted you, loved you. Itachi.